This weekend, going to be upgrading to the Antirock off-road sway bar setup for the 2020 and newer Jeep Gladiator. Going to be the rear setup. Thanks. Cool stickers. Looks pretty heavy duty. So we'll start ripping it apart. Ended up breaking sway bar links off the frame. Pretty common issue with the Gladiators, especially if you're top heavy like I was here. Tent up top, R-side smart cap, fully loaded rear, dropping off of some big ledges in Colorado. This one has not broken yet, but I mean, you're splitting the seam in the back. It's not holding up too well. I don't know if you can see, hairline crack. Yeah, been running it like this and that since about August, 4 months ago. And it's pretty terrifying on the highway. 70, 80 miles an hour with half a sway bar setup. Pretty awful. So we're gonna upgrade. First step for installing this sway bar setup. Gonna take off this fender flare and inner liner, a couple screws in the back, a bunch of these clips. This is probably a good time to do a rear fender chop. Haven't decided yet. What's up, Calvin? I guess as I get it apart here, we'll decide before we put it back together if we're gonna do a chop, but take the wheels off, make it a little easier, get it jacked up, and go from there. For removing these pins, you're supposed to push in the center here and it pops, but I've not had too good of luck. But when that releases, you'll take one of these little kits from Harbor Freight or Amazon or whatever. It's like 15 bucks, I think. So when you push that pin, we'll show you here in a second, you know, the clip right behind pops them out. There's a handful of how-to videos out there already tearing up these pins on the other side. So we probably are gonna do a fender chop just because I don't think it's gonna get back together. Ooh, a sneaky one up in there. Wow. Way to go, Jeep. Or you can break them. It always works. Looks like I broke 2 of them. Making this easy. To remove the rear sway bar stock setup, you're gonna take these 2 bolts on each side, 15 millimeter, and that'll release the bracket as well as the sway bar if your link's already disconnected. On this side, where I didn't break it, I'm gonna have to use some channel locks to hold the back nut setup, and that bolt's 18 millimeter. So to get this all undone here, so earlier we were saying gonna get some channel locks, but couldn't find those, and I figured vice grips would be better because I got weak hands, but couldn't find those either. So we're gonna attempt to do it here. Hopefully I can wedge this in there and hold it enough. Oh, yep, backwards. All right, that was actually pretty good. See, weak hands. There we go. Cool. Surprised that's still in there. Huh. Looks like we're gonna remove this brake line bracket and another little bracket here at the frame. 2 little clips, gonna pop those up. Okay. Ooh. Thanks, Moab. This 13 millimeter. Both sides got the brackets off, little clips pushed up there. Next, we should be looking to install these. There's some pre-assembly you have to do with some parts, and then we'll start to put it together. Using a file, kind of taking forever here. Can't really get a grinding wheel in, and I don't have air tools with a little die attachment. So I'm gonna take this, hopefully at an angle, kind of like a backhand pressure deal. Hopefully I can act like a little sanding disc or something, flatten it out, so we'll see. As you saw me struggling, this from Fact has this big bow in it. And I don't know if that's just one off my Gladiator or what, but I mean, that goes back probably ½ inch in there, bowed down like this. So just filing up the edges like this isn't really doing much. This whole piece is pretty much flared and bent inward right here. I don't really know what I'm gonna do to bevel it or shave it down without really cutting into too much of the metal. As you can see, it's really starting to chew this up. We're gonna figure something out. All right, so got her set in there. What I ended up doing instead of grinding more metal is I put this as far out as it would go, and I took this section and then put it in a vise and squeezed it as tight as I could to maybe bend the metal a hair. And at that point, I was able to just barely get it in there. And then a little mallet action, and we're on it. So we'll take care of the other side quick. Hammered it in, got it all figured out. Don't forget these little spacers. Set these bolts loose. Brackets tighten down. Don't forget the spacers. I'm gonna drive this bar through. The only tough spot should be right here at the beginning. That is a little smaller, should be able to slide it through. You do want to avoid hitting some sensors in there. So once I get it halfway, I'll probably come up underneath and fish it past so I can avoid messing that up. See how it goes. Next step, we're gonna pound this into like 3/4 of an inch out to make sure it's equal on both sides. All right, brackets in, bars in. I think we're about 3/4 of an inch each side. Gonna bring out the arms, keep setting them up. All right, next we need to undo this ABS cable bracket as well as the one Allen key bolt I have, a little different than stock with the Clayton bump stock bracket, but when everything's removed, this is going to slide right in. This is also threaded, and then we'll put everything back together. That'll be the lower mount. Some persuasion. I didn't realize at the bottom it's threaded to a nut. I thought it was welded, so it kept spinning on me. Now, the bracket should slide right in. This one goes right here. So, I wasted my time taking that out. So that's pretty funny. So there's a template, comes in the directions. I have it on the phone, so I can't really do anything. But I have to drill out a hole. This is threaded. If I go a little bigger, a little offset, I could probably use a washer and close it back up. Honestly, I might just, instead of doing all that drilling, I might set it in here. And if it works out all right, I might just weld the top because I really don't feel like trying to drill through two different pieces of metal. Yeah, so I think that's the plan. We're gonna install the bracket. I'm not gonna do that threaded setup here, but that should hold it enough to get set up, and then I'll come back and weld a bead across. Passenger side bracket does have that hole. It just sucks with having 2 spots to drill through. So I'm gonna bolt this one in. This one, I can see the threaded nut down in, so I'm gonna use a step bit here and see if we can get it to match up. Once you have this bolt in, the stock bolt back in, and the new provided shock mount bolt, you're gonna take the opposite side ABS clip. The way it goes is into this lower hole, just like that. And then they provide you with a new little bolt that's threaded. I don't know if I'm a huge fan that it's low like that, but I think it'll do. All right, I went ahead and installed sway bar bracket and NECs on this threaded bolt, as well as the little end cap that they provide. I'm not gonna crank these down just yet. Once I get the other side set, I'll start pulling some measurements and getting the position exactly where we want this, so that when we're fully flexed, you know, we still have a nice bend in the link setup, not to cause any damage. So before I set the other arm here, without pulling a bunch of measurements or something, I'm gonna set this to level as close as I can here. All right, and because the Jeep's up on stands, should be able to take this to the other side and then make sure the teeth are lined. All right, so we can already see that's off, you know, big time. So I'm gonna pop this off, level it out, and then from there we'll start to install the sway bar links themselves. Next, for the sway bar link, you'll take one end link that is right hand threaded, and then the other end link here is gonna have a line scribed into it. That should be left hand. Make sure you have 1 and 1. That way, when this is all connected, you'll be able to rotate the sway bar end bar here, left or right. So this one, I have kind of preset in here, figuring out the shims. I think I gotta put these 2 little spacers on the back side with these tight like this. That way everything's straight, and then, you know, you're not looking at it in the back and it's like this or like that. I think I like that. I'm gonna go ahead and mock up the other side as well. And then before I really set everything, we'll do a once over, tighten all the bolts, make sure everything in the back's good. Decided to just weld the top of the bracket to the factory bump stop. I just feel a lot of up and down rotation, and pushing and pulling is gonna really put a lot of strain on just 2 bolts there. Plus, I guess that little bolt there, but I don't know. I don't think a little weld will hurt. I'm definitely not going back to a factory sway bar setup. This is the passenger side where it's split, and then the other side where it's completely ripped off the frame. Gonna throw some paint on it and hopefully wrap this up tomorrow. All right, so got everything tightened up, tight as I could get it. This is the only spot we'll adjust, but I'll do that once it's back on its own weight, because currently the axle is pushed up at the jack stand. Making sure that this is the midway point with the travel. Once it's on the wheels, I can start to flex it out with like a high lift jack in the back. Bump this side up, figure out where I'm maxed out, and basically make sure that this arm and this rod don't become a straight line, causing this section here to invert. At full droop, you want this to still have a nice bend in it. So should be pretty easy here. These should pop back in. I didn't break all of them, which is pretty good. Looks like I only broke 3. Might cause an issue here, but we'll see. And a little. Might be able to hit that with a hammer. So there's one tab that's only going halfway. I'm gonna try this and see if I can get it to pop in. Oh, the other one popped in nice. So that's good. Not really working either. All right, so we're gonna try again. And this time I'm gonna try and grab it and get it to pop here. With the right set of tools, of course. All right, so the one clip that isn't broken, but I also can't get the set, I'm gonna see if I can force it through and get it to set with a pair of needle nose. Well, I broke it. So that's cool. Well, that really didn't work. If this flare starts to flop too much, I don't like it. It's a little bit of sheet metal here. I'll just send a self-tapping screw right into the side of it. It'll be exposed, so I'm not too worried about it going into like some open body panel on the inside or whatever. All right, both fender flares are back on, minus that little spot in the front. I'm gonna keep out the inner liners. I know the fuel arm and fuel neck looking stuff's pretty exposed, but until I dial this in, I don't really want to start putting that in, trying to cut it all up. I'm still debating if I'm going to chop this, but to wrap this video up, we'll get everything cleaned up, get everything set back on the ground, and start adjusting it. Kind of good. Got the Antirock all dialed in. Jeep's back together, on its own weight, went for a drive. Everything felt pretty good. What I'll do is drive it here for a few months, a couple thousand miles maybe, hopefully get some trail time, and hopefully give you a real life review here of how the Gladiator performs with the Antirock rear sway bar. Went together pretty easy. I don't think I have any issues or complaints. The bars are pretty tight on there. Everything feels good. Everything sounds good. No clinks or noises or anything like that like I was experiencing with the other sway bar links. So yeah, until next time.